Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, yeah, let them know that we're here. All right. Hoorah.
Raw.
Okay, I'm Air Force, but I know how to speak. I know how to speak Marine Corps. Hey, I'm Mike Black, Vice President for Defense here at AFC International. This is our first theater session for today, our final day. Obviously, the conference has been a huge success. I thank you all for your participation, record numbers, and record participation. This morning, we're going to start it off with a session in here called the Fighting Smart in support of the force design. We've got Mr. Sherry Thomas, who has many titles, CTO, and he's going to tell you all the others that he has. But he's a leader, senior leader in the cyber community, and he's going to be taking charge of this panel here today. So without further ado, Mr. Sherry Thomas.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Sherry Thomas, Cyber Technology Officer, Technical Director, Marine Corps Forces Cyberspace Command, Marine Corps Forces Space Command, and Marine Corps Information Command. And we'll go into more detail as we go along on that. This panel here is the Marine Corps is at the forefront of digital modernization with a focus on integration and interoperability. What I mean by that is naval integration, joint services, allies, and partners, as we've been hearing throughout this conference. Network unification is taking place, and to have awareness across the enterprise with a keen eye towards resilient transport pathways, data convergence, and cybersecurity. So transport agnosticity, network resilience, redundancy, data centricity, maneuverability, cybersecurity baked in from the beginning, and data literacy and talent management for our Marines, sailors, airmen, the entire team. This panel includes a hybrid cloud infrastructure, architecture based on zero trust principles, and an integrated mission and data fabric, IMDF, that is unified from tactical all the way up to the enterprise. This panel will lay out the journey thus far and what lays ahead, where we seek input from you all. So from the government side, what we want, from the industry and the academia partners that are out there. And so now it is my esteemed pleasure to introduce my colleagues on this panel here. So I have, first of all, Dr. Colin Crosby. He's the Marine Corps Service Data Officer. He's working directly for the Deputy Commandant for Information. The second one is Dr. Dan Corbin. He's the C4 Technical Director and the Marine Corps Senior Information Security Officer. Third here is Mr. Gaurang Dave. He is the Cyber Technology Officer and Marine Corps Systems Command. And the fourth one is Mr. Kevin, also known as Astro Murray, and he's the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer of the Marine Corps. And the fifth one there is Mr. Lewis Copland. He's the Executive Director, or the new Executive Director of PEO Digital and Enterprise Services, providing all of the new capabilities from the naval side. So we look forward to thought-provoking questions towards the end. And so at this point, I'll go into the first question. Dr. Crosby, can you explain the data-centric model that the Marine Corps is moving towards and how this differs from the network-centric environment?
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for the opportunity to sit on this panel with my esteemed colleagues. I'm very honored for the opportunity. Over the past few days, we have had the great opportunity to listen to some very thought-provoking keynote speakers, as well as interact with some panel discussion. And if you're listening, it's all about the data. How we capture, create, how we store, secure, aggregate, and analyze and distribute that data. Yes, data is that strategic asset, that force multiplier, that indispensable weapon that we must employ in order to win on the battlefield, including space. As such, our data-centric approach focuses on data, ensuring that data drives our modernization and our adoption principles, ensuring how critical data is widely available across the enterprise in a real or near real-time manner in order for us to use, secure, and link that data within our enterprise. So the difference between data-centric and network-centric is that we're no longer focusing on the hardware. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying that the data, the raw energy, the lifeblood of how we communicate across the enterprise, of how we capture, share, and save lives is the focus for how we modernize moving forward.
Appreciate that, Dr. Crosby, in terms of aligning everything to the data centricity, the data maneuverability. Now we move into how are we doing in terms of policy. Dr. Corbin, what kind of policies are IC4 delivering to support the Marine Corps in fighting smart that supports force design? Can you help us understand cattle drive?
Thank you. Yeah, so first off, I'll say that what we do at C4 is really in support of what Dr. Crosby talked about, ensuring that the data gets moved around in a way that it's available to whoever needs it, either warfighters at the tactical edge, which is really why the Marine Corps exists, but also there's a whole bunch of people on the business side of this that keeps those people running and trained and gives them the capabilities that they need to fight. So what we're trying to do is ensure that that data or that information is available to somebody or something somewhere to do something. And it has to be there in a manner that is secure and gives them the ability to have confidence in that data. As we move to into an environment where we are depending on more things to be more automatic with less people involved in the decision making, it becomes even more important that we have confidence in that data. And from a security standpoint, we generally think about the CIA thing, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability of that data. And in the environment that the Marine Corps plans to operate in accordance with force design and then fighting smart, it is even more important that we be able to have this availability thing that General Glavy has laid out the plan that's going to allow that to do that. So the policies that we're putting in place are to do just that, ensure that we can deliver secure capabilities very quickly. Many of you will know that there's the processes that support delivering capability, either it be because of security or acquisition. Many of those things stand in the way of doing things more quickly. But everybody in this table here is dedicated to improving that, either through DevSecOps pipelines that our good friends Mr. Complin's team is working on, or in our office and with Mr. Davi's help at the Systems Command, ensuring that we can do that much more quickly. Some of the challenges associated with that, all of those things, as you can imagine, the integration of the capabilities out in the field somewhat hamper those things, but we have to do it in a mature way. With respect to cattle drive that Mr. Thomas talked about, the whole purpose of that is a primary function of what we're supposed to be doing, which it's if you heard Secretary Del Toro talk about better value to the taxpayer, cattle drive is about getting rid of the stuff that you don't need anymore or isn't providing the best value for you anymore, so that you can do something in the future that provides more value. So it's nothing more sexy than that. So that's it. So cattle drive, get rid of the old crap so that you can invest in the new stuff.
Appreciate that, Dr. Corbin. And absolutely, Assured C2 is our #1 priority. So in the competition, in the crisis, and the conflict phases. Now we move into that acquisition side that you kind of hit on. Mr. Dave, how is Systems Command and the programs of record supporting in-network modernization across the Marine Corps?
Hey, good morning. Thanks for being here. Appreciate the opportunity to be on the panel. This is a great panel you can find. You have data, policy, CTO, S&T, another acquisition arm. Awesome panel for the Marine Corps. Before I get into the detailed, modernization, I wanted to give a quick overview about Systems Command, how the acquisition really worked, in the DoD and especially the Marine Corps. So Marine Corps Systems Command is the only acquisition command in the Marine Corps. Our mission is to equip our Marines with the most capable IT and ground weapon systems in order for them to maximize their expeditionary readiness and combat effectiveness in all domains. And when needed, as General Walsh yesterday pointed out, the timeline is very important. And the acquisition enterprise is actually in the Marine Corps works in such a way that requirements come from CD&I, which is Deputy Commandant for Combat Development and Integration. The money, the resources is planned in Deputy Commandant for Program and Resources, or DCPNR, and the R&D work that is conducted within the Marine Corps is a Marine Corps Warfighting Lab, or McQuill, and the procurement and fielding comes from Marine Corps Systems Command or our affiliated POs, PO Digital, PO MLB, or PO Land System. So I wanted to, that's the acquisition world in the Marine Corps. It's very important for acquisition world to understand the real threat that is we are facing. As DCI, Lieutenant General Glavy had, laid out fighting smart. The concept is all about data centricity, right? We must outthink, outcompete, and outfight competitors and adversaries by winning the fight for information in all domains. That basically it comes down to the core value of maneuver warfare. That's what we call. How do we do that? Is through our Marines, who are, from the information warfighting function. They fight smart through our talent management piece. Plus, we give them a technology they need and the data that they need to make the decisions. So these are the foundation of our fighting smart. Now, getting into the network modernization, as all the leaders said, earlier, again, from Lieutenant General Glavy's panel yesterday, information is a key warfighting function and a critical requirement for all functions. Without information, you really cannot make good decision or the faster decision that you need to make. So getting down to network modernization, the network mod, we call it, is a continuous pursuit, of cutting edge technologies, right? You need to look for new things. You cannot never be satisfied with what you have, as even Admiral Paparo said yesterday, right? You can never be happy. Whatever you get, you need more. And that is why also, I'm quoting our leadership, is that, status quo is our enemy. And we must seek for new things, new capabilities. So looking at the network side, there's additional things are needed in the network is ideally the network we build must be intelligent enough that it behaves like an adaptable organism that adapts to your mission, your need, and changes based on whatever the mission you are executing. And it has multiple components, multiple technologies that we use, such as cloud-based capabilities that allows us to get access to the data. Some of the technologies at the edge for the Marine Corps. So the data that we talked about earlier that is available for our Marines to make the smart decision at the speed they need. So how do we, as an acquisition, hope to do this? Is that we are moving towards, as a team we talked earlier, it's all about software-based capabilities, right? You have a hardware framework. We ain't got time to change hardware all the time. So how do we get into the software-based capabilities that acquisition must support that requirement that the Marine Corps needs? So in order to do that, the Systems Command recently realigned our portfolio in support of Force Design 2030 with the key folks supporting at the tactical level, as well as we're looking at different, options to use the routes call, like, using different contracting authorities, as you might have heard, OTAs, other transaction authorities, which is a really great option that Congress has provided to us that allows us to bypass federal acquisition regulations, or the FARs, to allow us to prototype on S&T world, which you're going to hear really closely, in a bit from Mr. Murray, how we take that, prototypes from S&T or R&D to take that capability that has proven to be useful to the next level with acquisition, how we combine that acquisition pathway is connected and takes it further to deliver at the higher capacity level. We also have our subordinated command, MCTISA, which is a Marine Corps Tactical System Support Activity, which is recently granted an STRL, Science and Technology Research Lab. We can really leverage our lab capability there. So overall in acquisition world, we have established a fusion cell that resides with McQuill, working with CD&I, as well as a PNR, S&T world, all those people together working right from the beginning. So when you communicate right from the beginning all together with all those teams, you have more chances of success than at the end you get into any problems. So in that sense, we are doing everything we can. We are looking at multiple ways of doing processes differently. We have, as a Marine Corps Systems Command, have sent out asking for our workforce, getting inputs on how can we improve our processes that allows them to do more things. One really quick example on contracts. We just recently realized that a lot of things coming through the contract directors for approvals, that was a sort of a choke point. Now we have delegated a contracting authority at certain level, certain thresholds up to like $100 million that can be done at a different level, which expedites the contracting process that was taking a longer time. So in overall, I wanted other panelists to talk about it. We are doing everything we can. However, it is not enough, and we're going to continue to look for new ways of finding different things, how the acquisition can help expedite capabilities to the Marines so they can win the war in any domain, in any field, anywhere, anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dave, and appreciate the great laydown on the entire acquisition life cycle. For the industry partners that are out there, there's CRADAs as well, Cooperative Research and Development Agreements, and we also have, it's been stood up for about a year now, it's called the Marine Corps Software Factory. They are looking at unique ways of changing or making changes to PORs and different systems, and also Marines are becoming coders, so that's a great opportunity too. Now the next one, Secretary Del Toro talked about execution and capabilities. And so in the fighting smart principles, we have 4 main principles, which are data centricity, combined arms, ISR enterprise, and talent management. So now, Mr. Murray, many of us understand or know about CJADC2, Combined Joint All-Domain Command and Control. But so far, we haven't heard much about the Marine Corps on their plans. What does that effort look like in your purview? And can you talk about Project Dynamis in this regard?
Yeah, thanks, Sherry. I appreciate it, and what a great opportunity to be here and talk a little bit today. I'm not sure I can follow up on Mr. Dave, but I'll try. Little Marine Corps, as the smallest service, understands its role in the greater joint force, in that we're not going to solve CJADC2 for everybody. Like, we don't have the depth of the pockets, we don't have the people, we don't have none of that. But what we have done is over the past 5 years, we've gone through wargaming, modeling and simulation, experimentation, jointly, not service unique capabilities, but the fact that we have done this in, with, and through the Army's Project Convergence, the Navy's Project Overmatch, the Air Force with ABMS, SOCOM, close relationship with the intelligence community, the NRO, the NGA, the NSA, and our other government agency partnerships. We have largely come to a point now, after 5 years of force design, where we feel very comfortable and confident in saying that we have an opportunity to become the integrator in CJADC2 for the Joint Force. Our primary warfighting concept now is called stand-in forces and expeditionary advanced base operations. These concepts have come over years of hard work now and analytical rigor to figure out our value proposition to that joint force. And I say that very specifically because there's a point in time where you continue to iterate or you die. You can be Blockbuster peddling a VHS tape saying we want, hey, here's a Marine Corps Air Ground Task Force and it's going to be awesome, but it's a VHS tape, let's be honest, you know what I mean? If it's in this old configuration. Or how do we become software-centric, data-centric in this information age and become Netflix and that pivot and understand our value proposition in an era and an environment of extreme debt, of increased threats, of increased problems all over the world. And you see this, Marines are everywhere now. We recognize the need to deploy our forces forward, to operate as a reconnaissance and counter-reconnaissance force for the Joint Force. And as I like to say, gain and maintain custody of targets 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Feed that information to the Maritime Operations Center and the Naval Construct, or to the Air Force Central Command and Control Facilities, or to the Army's Battle Management Operations Centers, and make sure that we are providing value to the Joint Force in that regard. There's lots of other things we do as a Marine Corps. Those aren't the only things. But we're Marines. We love to blow stuff up. So I also like to say, become the JTAC of the Joint Force. In this data-centric environment, if we're able to gain and maintain custody of targets, then we're also able, in an era of today's weapons and systems architecture, where we can take control of those weapons, we can do the battle management and command and control in support of the Joint Force. It doesn't mean the Marine Corps may or may not be a JTF headquarters, and we're training MEFs right now to do so. But then it comes down to what is the cape set necessary for us to integrate across all of the other services. The Marine Air Ground Space Task Force allows us, I threw an S in there. Did you like that? Yeah, it was pretty good. But it's like logistics. That's kind of silent too, but absolutely critical to what we're doing going forward. I'm on a monologue. But the point of this whole thing is that we have figured out in this ecosystem that we can take a little bit from everyone else. Marines are really good at stealing stuff. Go back to World War II. We love the Army's logistics because we would take it for our own. Their weapons, their shoes, their boots, We're kind of doing the same thing with what we're trying to do with CJADC2. We've been so deeply ensconced, kind of the insurgent within all the other services CJADC2 efforts, that we're kind of curating best of breed right now. And we're at a point where we're right now into the how phase, and we're going to bring together that system of systems architecture. And it is all about architecting it in such a way, all the way down to the tactical edge. And Sherry, you talked about it, right? What does an enterprise network look like? All the way down to an Android tablet at the tactical edge, and an individual Marine looking at a common tactical picture with the battle management, command and control tools and integration that aggregates all the way back up to the Deputy Commandant of Information's desk and the systems that he has there using the appropriate business applications. All of that has to come together, has to be cyber defensive. We have to be able to protect that network, and then we have to be able to let it break up and de-aggregate at the time of our choosing in order to fight, because we know that the adversary gets a vote, and then re-aggregate. And this hybrid cloud architecture and the technology today has led us to this position where we're ready to go. We feel very confident that we have curated a very interesting set of capabilities that take us to the next level. Every one of you's got one of these, right? Some sort of tablet. This is just a common hosting environment. And if you use that mindset and go, what's on it? Just a bunch of applications, right? Software, right? If it's all about the software, and we're in a data-centric environment and in an information age, then why doesn't that scale? So we're in the process of making it scale. Common hosting environments for all my friends, at echelon. We used to talk about companies and battalions and regiments and divisions and MEFs, but now we talk about task forces, task groups, task units, and task elements in this construct as a joint force, and how the Marine Corps will enable the joint force in that manner. And I think it's really, really quite interesting, especially when you tie in things like what the DepSecDef is trying to do with the tritable mass and Project Replicator. Our project and our effort is to shamelessly integrate and take all the parts and pieces from all the other services CJADC2 efforts and bring them together, and then become the integrator of the joint force. I'll stop there.
Appreciate providing that why proposition on Project Dynamis. So the 3-4 priority areas in terms of we're trying to align to mission need, velocity in terms of fielding, divestiture of legacy products, and critical mass. So these all help to set the conditions. So on to the next speaker. Mr. Copland, congratulations again on your new role at PEO Digital and Enterprise Services. How does PEO Digital, and I say PEO Digital in the naval side, right, on the Marine Corps, work with the Marine Corps to prioritize and deliver capabilities that are navally integrated?
Yeah, good morning. Really happy to be here. Thank you. I'm the new deputy at PEO Digital and Enterprise Services. We've been doing a lot of work to think about how do we work in a world where software eats everything, software is never done, and as Dave Farley talks about in modern software engineering, we're in a field where we can create the medium itself and the tools to do the things we want to do with them. So that's power unlimited, but we need to be good at doing it. Our vision in doing that is to deliver a world-class digital experience at the speed of mission. And, what does that mean? What does world-class actually mean, and how do you measure it? I think we all recognize its absence. When we go to use something and it's not there, when we go to use something it's hard to use, when it takes a long time to change, like we recognize the lack of world-classness, if that's a word, world-classosity. But we need to move to measuring the outcomes and not just the outputs. And SecNav briefly referenced William Sims this morning and the Revolution Naval Gunnery. So that transition from measuring shots fired to shots that hit, that was a big switch from output to outcome. And that's what we're talking about here. The only software that counts is the software that people use, because we've got these 5 world-class alignment metrics. Has high customer satisfaction, and we can measure that. We can do net promoter scores. We can do Qualtrics surveys. We can do just watch people adopt or not adopt. Operational cyber resilience. Is it going to be there reliably? And you don't have to sweat. Is it going to be there even under trying conditions, even under non-benign use cases, even when, oh my God, the Windows upgraded from 10 to 11, and I hear there might be a Windows 12 even. How are we going to deal with that? User time lost. How long does it take to actually get to a point of productivity? How long does it take you in the morning to boot your laptop and not just to see the logo or to hit your username and password or a PIN, but actually to be the point where you're clearing all your red dots in Teams? Adaptability and mobility. When we do get a new idea, when we do get a new Windows version, or when we decide to pivot software, or when we get something that's coming out of experimentation in S&T, and like, oh, this is good, we need to run with this, we need to scale. How adaptable and how mobile are we? What is our time to deliver change, not to begin to develop change, but to actually get it fielded at scale? And then, last and somewhat least, but not entirely least, I don't know how many comptrollers we have here, is cost per user. Like, we do want to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars, obviously. No one's giving us extra bags of money to do things, so we do need to divest to invest. We need to cattle drive those things, as Dr. Corbin said. But it's not lowest price technically acceptable. It's best value. We're not here to spend as little as possible because we're not a cost center. We're an investment in force multipliers. So it makes sense to spend more to get more when that's what the mission takes. So cost per user gives us fiscal agility and the ability to maneuver at scale in that regard. So these things we talked about, science and technology, pilots, enterprise services where we can build once and use often, and divesting things, cattle driving them, and what happens at the end of the cattle drive to the cattle. These are actually things that we can track and use different value criteria for. We've got technology investment horizons, and so when all these good ideas come about, and of course, most of the smartest people don't work for us by definition. It's a big planet, lots of people have good ideas. So we want all those people innovating, but we want to be able to see that. Let's throw it up on the visual task board. Let's see these Horizon 3 good ideas, whether they're coming out of the S&T community or DARPA or CRADAs or whatever. Let's validate those with transparent controls and measures of maturity. Let's get them into a Horizon 2 pilot. In Horizon 2, we actually put our own PEO Digital money and time and effort into something. Say, there's a there. We like this. We don't quite know how big it's going to get, how much scope, how much capability, how many functions, how broad is the use case, but we're going to mature it. And then we want to translate those pilots into enterprise services. That's our Horizon 1. That's our bread and butter. This is where we're really doing things at scale. We're maximizing effectiveness to the point of need and not beyond. Then we're fixing effectiveness and we're maximizing efficiency and extracting cost out of how we sustain that capability as long as we want it to free up the resources to do more cool things in Horizon 3 and Horizon 2. And finally, we get to Horizon 1 where we say thank you for your service. We're going to Marie Kondo this particular technology service and wish you well in your future endeavors. So that's kind of the framework about how we're thinking about these things. We really want to be capability oriented. We want to measure goodness in terms of those 5 world-class alignment metrics and those outcome-driven measures. We want to be transparent. We want everyone at the table. And we don't want to compete things that are in different horizons against each other because that doesn't make any sense. You can't score innovation according to the criteria you score sustainment. And that's often what we do in the POM process. We say, well, what's your 5-year budget projection? I don't know. I'm doing an experiment. Like I want to fail fast. I want to place a lot of small bets at scale. Individually, it's not a lot of money. You can't use the same criteria on those different ones. So that's what we're trying to take through, and we're working really closely across Syscom with not just PO Digital, but all the other elements in Syscom, with headquarters in terms of strategy and the NetMod plan, Mixed-End implementation plan, working with the S&T community and Project Dynamis in the war room. So I think the last thing we really need to keep in mind is this only really works with the DevOps mindset. And in DevOps, ops needs to drive dev. Again, if the software is not in production, then no one can use it. If no one's using it, then it was output and not outcome. So we can't be too partnered with the cyber operational community and all of our user communities, whether data scientists or software developers. And we really need to let them set the priorities and set the pace.
Thank you, Louis. Appreciate that, especially the importance on user experience and cost, return on investment, and as the Secretary of Navy talked about, taxpayer value. So we'll go to another theme here, integrated deterrence. How between all the different transport areas and how all the data is coming together. So first I'll start with Dr. Dan Corbin. How is the Marine Corps ensuring seamless network unification across naval platforms? And what are the primary challenges in achieving this integration?
And thanks, Jerry. I suspect the answer to this question is going to surprise none of you if you've been spending much of your time at any of these presentations today and through the week, because the theme has really been about how we're going to operate and use data to operate, and how we're going to share it with all of our friends, and prevent the adversaries from doing the same thing. Well, to be able to do that, you've got to have some common framework under which to share that data from a technical perspective. And we're generally doing that through means that are traditionally the way we've done it all along, where we buy a bunch of stuff, we then try to integrate it together. And we've had success in the past, but there's been many challenges in that same model, right? We have aircraft that can't talk to ships and so forth. And you always ask, how do we get to that point? But the work that the folks at McWill that work for us and that Astro Murray is doing is trying to get those things to work together. We in the Marine Corps are trying to go to a common, a single network, I'll say, a single network. And you'll often hear of it called the single mix-in concept, which is there's a single network which all of our stuff is going on to. And then that information that flows through that network from the term that is used here, from fighting hold to flagpole, so that everybody has insight that needs it into the mission that they're due to accomplish. But there's lots of challenges associated with that, that can generally be grouped into probably 4 areas. I mean, you can group everything that you're doing into these 4 areas. Process process issues, people issues, technology issues, and data issues. All of those issues exist today, and I'll just talk about some of them here. A lot of the stuff that Astro is doing and we're trying to do from a technology standpoint, while there are some very technical things associated with that, latency issues that physics stops us from achieving some objectives, but there's other technologies that are mitigating those issues. But it's really, many of the technical issues really aren't technical per se, but they come from things like not the right radios or not the right waveforms, which really come from the way that we buy things and we program for things, and how you have to buy them and phase them in over time so that you can get them, integrate them into your system, like us or the Army and us and the Air Force, and then upgrade everybody's system sort of at the same time. I can't remember which speaker it was, it was Bob Stevenson on the first day. He said it was the first time, just recently, and the first time that a battle group was able to deploy completely with the same software build, which then meant they were able to communicate without having to do a bunch of backflips to make it work well. So the challenges. So then you have the people challenges, which is we produce a lot of stuff. While we're getting much better at because of the young generation are able to pick things up and just do it, those things are getting better, right? So we can deliver stuff, we can get it to them, and they pick it up. Now you go back to the left where people are having to buy it, right? Buy it and ask for it to meet those requirements. And we are probably missing some skills in that area, especially the real emergent skills that our acquisition community hasn't quite picked up and have enough expertise to do it. It's nothing wrong on their part, it's just the way the process works. And so we often end up with technology that's start to be put into our system probably later than we would like. So through that whole life cycle of the system, we have to have trained people who understand the technology so that we can ask for it, so that we can buy it, so that we can integrate it, and then we can field it and the people can use it. So it's not enough just to have trained people to use it. You got to have trained people to buy it, right? And we saw that, we see that, and the whole purpose of this 5G thing that you probably heard about, these tranches, was to figure out, do we even know how to buy it? And then do something with it. And I think we found out that it was, there were some gaps in our expertise there. So people, technology, data, I'll leave it to Dr. Crosby to talk about that, but you can imagine that our data problems have existed for years, as long as we have, and will probably continue to exist even though there's a great deal of effort to solve the data problems. And when I say data problems, I don't mean just the ones associated with the giving it to the operators, but the ones that are necessary to the left of buying it, which is the data that helps us maintain and sustain our systems. That's important. Everybody's mission requires data. So people, process, technology, and the process, right? So all the processes that include that whole life cycle have weaknesses in them. We talked about the contracting processes. I talked about the cybersecurity processes. All of them, we should all be looking at our own processes and doing what we need to mature them, because every time there's a break in a process, it creates inefficiencies and it creates a delay in the delivery of something. So all of us have obligations to do that, and it falls under this idea of, hey, permission granted, do your job, sort of things.
Appreciate that, Dr. Corbin. So right data, right place, right time. And so now I'm going to go to Dr. Colin Crosby. What is the integrated mission and data fabric? How are the SDO's efforts tied to naval and DoD data and AI strategies? And we're going to do this in a quick fire format so that we don't close the gap and have you guys asking questions too.
Okay, before I get to the IMDF, Astro brought up Blockbuster earlier, and every time I hear Blockbuster, I have to smile because I used to work for Blockbuster. I was actually pretty good at it. I ran my own store right after college back in 1994. And everyone knows what happened, what started to happen back in 1994, right? Netflix started coming out. So as I'm running my store and Netflix is coming, bear with me, I'm going somewhere with this. I saw Netflix coming out. I went to my bosses. I'm like, hey, do you see this? And they're like, they're delivering videos to your mailbox. You don't have to go outside and go get it. You don't have to traverse this into the 6 inches of snow, ice road to go get your video. And they're like, well, this is how Blockbuster does things. That's how we've always do things, and you just can't, we just can't change. And then the next year, I was like, okay. The next year, I joined the Marine Corps because I saw the writing on the wall. But I say that to say that that was a franchise owner that I spoke to, and they weren't empowered to pivot. They weren't empowered to change, and they could not modernize. So they basically went down with the ship. And so when we think of the IMDF, I want us to think about the ability to empower your people, to improve readiness, and to modernize. Because if you're not able to modernize, that's where you run into problems. So the IMDF will enable the 7 warfighting functions, providing a cohesive and comprehensive battle space picture for decision makers to sense, make sense, and act. The IMDF is that hybrid approach, which enables the integration of data from disparate locations across, via an autonomous fashion using APIs. So that's important because, MCDP 8 information, there's a section that talks about truth, trust, and belief. You have to be able to trust the sources, the data that's creating your data. You have to be able to trust the truth of that data, and you have to believe that the information that you're receiving is the true information that's going to allow you to do your mission. So the IMDF is not a thing, it's an approach to how we do business. And how we're going to get after that is to be able to modernize our current environment, getting away from, as General Blade would say, that the big H and more, and to changing the big H to a small h and turning the small s to a big S. It's all about the software. It's all about the capabilities. It's all about the cloud. It's all about operating within the cloud. It's all about securing that information, zero trust. It's all about ensuring that those Marines that are in that first island chain are able to capture information and able to use and analyze that information at the edge without having to reach back. It's all about headquarters being able to pull that information that they need. They're able to inform policies, all in a seamless environment. I mentioned it before, we have real or near real-time environment. The IMDF is that blanket that will allow us to empower our force, our people, improve readiness, and modernize our force in order to save lives.
Thank you, Colin. Information advantage as a warfighting function, and we heard that from the Secretary of the Navy this morning. So now setting the conditions. Astro, from your role, can you talk to us about where you see the priorities for the Marine Corps as a stand-in force?
Yeah, thank you. So there's the material solution and then there's the value proposition. I think I talked a little bit about the value proposition already in terms of our sensors forward. Everything's in IC terms is a 3-ball collect, right? It's a EOIR sensor, it's a radar of some sort, or it's a signals generator detection and tracking system that gives you a line of bearing. Bringing that data together, fusing it into a common track, and then feeding that information back is the very tactical edge of operationalizing the data. It gets much bigger than that, though, as you try to feed that data and skip echelon to get your data all the way back up into like the NRO or NSA or NGA systems in order to aggregate that into the larger processing, exploitation, and dissemination capability set. The Marine Corps really sees itself from a value proposition as a Marine Air-Ground Task Force operating as a part of the larger joint force, doing that reconnaissance and counter-reconnaissance mission. But in order to get there, we have to, like, as Mr. Dave said, we've got to build the assembly line, right? We've got to collapse the JSIDS process. We've got to merge the DoD 5000 capability set so that we can iterate faster. And so in order to deliver to the Marines the sensors, the computing power, the ubiquitous transport capabilities, and then turn that into a commoditized program of record, so we're not, fielding the iPhone 15 when we're already on iPhone 20, down the road. And we've done some of that. We're a 5-year fit-it process. You're looking at SATCOM investments and other things that we made decisions back in 2019 that the world has dramatically and technology has dramatically changed even in that short of a period. And we have to be able to become flexible in our processes, in our acquisition cycle, and in our development cycle. And so towards that end, as we look to become that JTAC of the Joint Force, that stand-in force that enables the maritime force first and foremost, gaining and maintaining custody of targets, we have to commoditize the hardware. We have to learn to buy in tranches and not be wed to a 20-year program of record. We have to be able to rely on ubiquitous transport because it's not reliable. Get back to the days of a PACE plan. We kind of fell out of that fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq, where we didn't have a threat that was consistently jamming our signals, although I would say we typically jammed ourselves a lot. But and then focus on the software, which means containerizing the software, iterating the software, as we've been talking about, at a speed at which we can, at the speed at which the technology is changing. And I think that's the biggest problem right now. We've got a bunch of Marines who are digital natives out at the edge, collecting the data, able to take action on the data with their own organic weapon systems, are able to aggregate that information, largely track data and other intelligence that we've been gathering, and feed that back up the chain into the big IC redonculator, I made that word up, of processing, exploitation, and dissemination. And we're demonstrating data fusion, but they're frustrated because it's an old Prick 117 Golf green gear radio, or it's a, it's just a legacy system, and we've got to separate the hardware from the software and then learn to buy in tranches and start building our programs of record as buckets or as portfolios, and then doing systems of systems integration, and quit calling it a specific thing. I'm not going to buy an MQ-9. I'm going to buy a MUX mail. That way I can iterate my unmanned aircraft systems at the speed at which the technology is changing. And I think that's critical to our operational approach, which also means we're going to fight with prototypes. We have to get in the business of being able to buy a prototype, put it in the fleet, build the TTPs in parallel, let them use the gear operationally, and not just test it ad nauseum in CONUS before fielding it time late, which has been the historical norm.
Thank you, Astro. So a couple of key points there. We need to have a PACE plan, incorporate modern technology, and empower Marines at the lowest level. So appreciate that. Now I'm going to turn it over to the entire panel, but primarily for Gaurang and Louis in terms of the acquisition side of it. Looking ahead, what are the key areas where the Marine Corps seeks input from industry and academia to further its digital modernization objectives? Where in the journey is the Marine Corps at in terms of transport technologies, data technologies, cybersecurity technologies? What are areas that you are looking for from industry partners? And this is for industry partners to pay attention to. So this is where the acquisition side is coming together.
I'll go ahead really quick. I understand I'm tracking the time. It's almost 10:30, so we'll split up some time really quick. So, if you're tracking in cyber security, as we talked about the acquisition and data, how data is important to get the capability or information delivered to the Marines or warfighter to make the decision in the faster speed that they need. Cybersecurity is important to secure your data. So we're following, through the DoD guidance. One is zero trust architecture. I believe there are 172 activities laid out that all the services has to implement or address. So, I mean, not every activities, are available. So that's one of the area we're gonna have to, no kidding, get the zero trust implemented in such a way that when you have a common vulnerabilities in cyber security, the zero trust with defense in depth capabilities will allow you to be safe and protect somewhat, better data. The second quickly is that I didn't get to address much more on, cannot stress enough about the new software capability going towards using DevSecOps, right? I didn't get to, we alluded earlier on a Marine Corps software factory that Lieutenant Colonel Charlie Bach is here, who is leading down in Austin. We're working with Army's Create, software pipeline, which is really important because that allows us to bring different tools that, you mostly can secure your apps. Right now, I mean, you cannot say never that you're gonna have a vulnerability-free applications, but if you follow the proper DevSecOps, process, you're gonna end up using a lot of tools that allows you to scan for vulnerabilities tests right at the container level. And when you have a containerized security, app that is ready to deploy, you can deploy that anywhere for the Marine can use. There's a bunch of other, capabilities, in a cloud at the edge, but I'll let Louis go ahead and I'll wrap it up. Thank you.
Okay, well, first I would invite everyone to go to peodigital.navy.mil. There's an industry drop down there. Take a look at our industry book. It lays out a lot of what I've talked about in specific technology areas. We want to hear from you about how you can move the needle measurably and significantly in those 5 world-class alignment metric areas: customer satisfaction, resilience, and the others. So any good idea, certainly welcome that. Cloud native in a disconnected fashion, enterprise services, zero trust, yes, these are the broad areas that we're working on. We are definitely thinking about the information environment from a micro-segmented, software-defined, identity-bounded fashion. So it's not just a network, it's all those information environments. And I would just encourage you to go there and send in your good ideas so we can get to the questions.
Yes, thank you, and that's a good segue because now I see a couple of people lined up for questions, so I'm going to open it up for Q&A.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Captain Shea. I'm a communications instructor and also the ISSM for the Marine Corps Weapons School. My question is mostly directed to Dr. Corbin, but anybody can have any input. It's on, sorry, I'll get a little closer. My question's about reciprocity. At the Marine Corps Weapons School, I have a lot of pilots that I work with, and they'll come from our sister schools from WIC in the Air Force or Top Gun in the Navy with some new software application that works really well for our sister services, and may even take the initiative to hand me an ATO and say, hey, let's put this on the network, and I have to patiently explain that that's not that simple. We have to put in a full package complete with hardware software lists and like scans and other items, which takes time. It's a little bit complicated, which is frustrating both for the vendor who feels like they're doing double work, and then also, of course, for my users. So I know that we have separate platforms, MCAS versus EMAS, and changing that would take a lot of time and a lot of money. But specifically with policies and procedures, is there anything in the future we could do to make reciprocity a little bit more efficient?
Yeah, so I'll start by mentioning, I don't know if it was actually his predecessor that was doing the AO CISO function about a year and a half ago. We signed a reciprocity agreement with the Navy, so it is, at least the way I've dealt with it, it's very fast. As long as the context is right, you got to make sure it's the right context, right? You can't take something that's designed to be in a skiff and then put it out in a tent somewhere, right? So because there's some controls that get applied someplace else. But by and large, we have, at least in the last year, have I'm not going to say, have accepted the reciprocity agreement to the fullest extent that it is designed to occur. Now, the people have to have something to look at to be able to make that determination that contextually it's correct. And if that means some level of artifacts and how they get that is probably where you're talking about the challenges of getting it from the Navy system to ours. But there was work when he was doing it that said, should we adopt the system that everybody else is using for this RMF process? And I think the determination was made by the Navy. They're not. They're coming over to MCAS, right?
Yeah, yeah. So just to add it really quick, right, I was acting AO prior to him, and we have opened up a lot. So right now, we are not looking at what system you use, EMAS, MCAS, or whatever, Exata, or any other, system people are using. We are honoring the reciprocity and looking at any way we can improve. We had a topic we didn't get to talk about, which we are going towards, we signed an agreement with the Department of Navy level at the CIO on RACE 2.0, which is a rapid assess and incorporate, software engineering process. So from between Navy and the Marine Corps, but we are going towards at the DoD CIO level to have that adopted across the DoD level, which really allows all the app owners, if you're doing software engineering, to certify your environment as one ATO, and you can speak any apps that you want, no ATO is required. And the recent example from the Navy's Overmatch Software Armory, they had 35 apps, no ATO, and over $6 million in cost savings. So we are all about that. I'm supporting Dr. Corman as an alternate AO for the Marine Corps. We are looking for any options, but feel free to reach out to us when if the lower level, the training is the biggest issue for us right now, that sometimes some of the analysts don't know certain things that may get stuck, but feel free to bring it up to us, and we can meet.
Yeah. So if you can just contact me, and we'll with your specific ones, we can check into it. But one last item is, by doing this, by doing the reciprocity, there's a level of trust in the work that happened before. We had a very recent incident that we adopted the reciprocity and moved forward, and then found out they didn't necessarily do all the work they were supposed to. So we had to do some work in the back. But we understand the desire and the need to get stuff out fast, so we're willing to take more risk in certain areas for that regard.
So
Thank you.
appreciate that question. And most of these panel members should be available after to talk follow-on conversations. So I believe we have time for maybe one or two more questions. So next question, please.
Thank you. Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Major John Galucci with Mar4 Cyber. Mr. Dave, I'm absolutely thrilled to hear that one, MCTISA has been granted a resource laboratory capability, and two, we're going after the OTA contracts. As a reserve Marine officer myself, I've had the privilege of being on the contractor side, working with AFRL and seeing the results, and just seeing what we can produce in such a short amount of time. So my two questions for you are, what changes are we making on the Marine Corps side to ensure the right funding, the right organizational structures in place so we can successfully execute on these OTAs? And two, how are we prioritizing which capabilities to prototype first?
Yeah, no, good, great question. I'll try to be really quick, and we can talk later because I was given 3 minutes warning. So for the OTA, we are using a MidSum portfolio, which is the Manpower IT System Modernization, or MOD, which is led by Colonel Bailey. We have few OTAs that they are awarded, and because of the Manpower IT systems are prioritized by Commandant as a high priority, that is where we started, right? So we always going to match the priority based on the Marine Corps priority and support, with the resources when they're available, right? So we always going to have a issue, or not issue, but challenges with when the Congress is going in the CR, when we need different funding. Same portfolio is struggling to get the budget gets passed because they have a new start, right? But to answer that, secondly, is we are training the contract, folks to understand where they can leverage a lot of other things that they're not aware. For one more question, we'll talk later, I guess, after this. So we are tracking and prioritizing based on the Commandant's Marine Corps priority.
Yeah, and I'll just add, PO Digital is also doing OTAs, and we've stood up a procurement center of excellence to really look at the entire DAU contracting cone, 1023 procurement for experimental purposes by name, things like that.
Awesome.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Time for one more.
Good morning. Mike Berrigan. I'm with Alexandria Insights based in Stafford, Virginia. And I have a question for Mr. Murray regarding Project Dynamis. And interested to know how Project Dynamis is integrated with the MARCOR Syscom programs of record, particularly MAGTF C2, PMTCE, PM Intel. Is it feeding requirements? Are they parallel efforts? Is it going to get subsumed? What's the strategy?
Yeah, certain. Great question. So if you didn't hear, it's like, what's the strategy for how we're bringing it all together in terms of our CJAD C2 efforts in, with, and through MARCOR Syscom, PEL, Land Systems, and NavAir. Let's not forget that the airborne network layer is super important as well. I would just say that Mr. Dave talked about this fusion process that we're established. We actually bought out a floor in the Quantico Corporate Center, kind of neutral ground, if you will. We'll call it Casablanca, where PM MAGTF C2, PM Intel, all of the different program managers, the capabilities developers and integrators from CD&I, the requirements writers, TCOM, we're building cross-functional teams across headquarters Marine Corps in order to accelerate. If you bring all that diversity and brain power together through this process, and you build the board, center cells, and working groups to support those capabilities, then there should be a natural acceleration of capability development from S&T 6.1 through 6.3 to R&D 6.4 through 6.8 into procurement and sustainment. And they should naturally be, part of it has always been the not created here syndrome. You know, in S&T you build something new and I got a brand new widget and hey, let me introduce you my iPhone. You know, and they're like, well, I've got my tactical radio, it doesn't fit in my requirement. Well, this is meant to do those things in parallel and create the parallel processing for that. And the fusion process is meant to be the kickoff for that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, great questions. Before we get cut off the mics here, so just wanted to bring about what the Secretary spoke about, right? Challenge the status quo. We want best of breed solutions. We got to do this together, right? The input, output that we're providing from the government side, we need the industry and the academia. We need to provide this to our Marines. There's no excuse, right? And as Admiral Paparo said, if we all do our jobs, history will not know our names, and that's the way we want to see it. And so I appreciate the panel for their time to share their thoughts. I believe some of them will be available for questions afterwards, too. Thank you.